Hi, my name's Edyn. I'm a class size yoga instructor. Today we're doing a quick and dirty intermediate level flow. All you'll need is a blanket if you have tender knees, a strap, and a set of blocks if they're a normal part of your practice. As always, my yoga practices do not have ads in the middle, so if you appreciate an uninterrupted yoga experience, you can always buy your gal pal a coffee. Other than that, I will meet you on your mat in just a few moments.
I'm going to start kneeling on my mat. If you have tender knees, feel free to take a blanket folded and place it under your knees, or you can sit on your bottom in a straddle. It's not required for you to kneel. We want you to be comfortable here. I'm going to start with one hand on my belly and one hand over my heart space and start to elongate my breaths. Taking big, deep breaths in and letting it out with a nice audible sigh. Again, nice deep breath in and let it out. Keeping with your breath. And starting to scan the body for any tension. If you're feeling any tension in your shoulders, maybe you give them a few gentle rolls to the back and a few gentle rolls forward. Lift up your eyebrows and drop them back down. Unclench your jaw. Wiggle your nose. For me, I'm feeling some tension in my glutes, so I'm going to relax them and sink a little bit further into my kneeling position. Keeping that breath nice and long. And letting it go. Feeling calm and pulling yourself into this moment, into your practice for the day. Take just a couple more breaths. Big inhale here and let it go. And then we're going to make our way to a tabletop position. Wrists under shoulders, knees under hips. You can be slightly off center if that's more comfortable for you. Just shift into this position a little and find some comfort. And then we're going to start with our cat-cows, pulling the spine all the way up and then exhaling, dropping the belly towards the mat. Very good. Inhale, pulling the spine up, arching up like a little kitty cat. And exhale, dropping the belly. Taking these at your own pace and giving you the option to reverse breaths if that feels good for you. Maybe you inhale as you drop the belly and exhale as you push the ground away, arching your spine way, way up towards your ceiling. And here, take some liberty to move like you. My spine was craving some circles, so I'm just moving in a circle like I'm scraping the inside of a barrel, really minding and easing into the areas that are feeling a little sticky, staying there for maybe a second longer where you feel that stiffness in your spine. Just full fluidity, letting your neck and head follow. Go ahead and tuck all 10 toes. Make sure all 10 toes have connected with the mat and slowly push up into our first downward facing dog of our practice. Starting to pedal out here, really releasing the tension in the back body and driving your heels toward the mat. If your heels are still up off of the mat, I invite you to bend your knees and see if that helps. Now walk your hands towards your feet or your feet towards your hands, whichever feels best, and take a step towards the front of your mat. We're going to go ahead and stay folded forward and then come up to a halfway lift. If you need a set of blocks here, it would be a great time to grab them. Then step back into a plank pose, come down into a modified up dog pose, tuck your toes and press back up into our downward facing dog. Very good. Walk your feet up towards your hands. Come all the way up, big breath, mountain pose. And exhale, fold forward. Halfway lift. Grab hold to your blocks or the floor. Step back into our plank pose. Lower down, and we're going to go straight into a modified downward facing dog. Tuck your toes and press back up into your downward facing dog. Walk your feet towards your hands. And one more time through that sun salutation. Big inhale up. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, step back into your plank pose. Lower down, coming into our upward facing dog. Tucking your toes and pressing up into our downward facing dog. Then walking up to the front of your mat. Lifting all the way up with a big breath, upward salute. And exhale, bringing your hands down to mountain at your sides. Taking a few breaths here. Resetting from our sun salutations, getting ready to move into our flow for the day. Reconnect with those nice deep breaths. Big inhales and blowing out any hot air. Big inhale up and exhale. We're going to start to bend into our knees, one at a time, just feeling the weight shifting from side to side. Just shifting all the way up onto your toes on one side and then to the other. As plus size people, sometimes we have some curvature in our back, so gently press your tailbone just to a neutral position. We're not tucking forward. We just want to come from an arched back, an arched lower back to a nice neutral position. Arms come overhead and we start to sit just like you're sitting in a chair. Now there are a few options here. If this doesn't feel good, maybe coming a little lower will feel good for you. If that's still not right, maybe you step a little wider, pull the belly inside of your leg space, and that extra room may feel good. And if that's not an option, maybe you just take a micro bend at the knee. Find whatever your level is for chair pose and start to breathe into the pose. Nice, solid breaths throughout the strengthening pose. Big inhales in and audible exhales. Bring your hands to our hips. We're going to slowly start to slide our right foot back. Nice and slow, keeping the bend in our front leg until you get to a nice high lunge. Beautiful. Deepening here if it feels good, bending more into your front knee, keeping with your breath. And then just starting to slowly tilt forward, tilting forward into your front leg to feel a little bit of weight. See what it feels like to have weight in your front leg. And scoop in your lower belly. Scoop in your lower belly and pull up your pelvic floor. It's going to help us lift up and balance into this pose. So scooping in the lower belly and pulling up the pelvic floor, feeling that strength and letting it guide you forward. Looking for a spot on the floor that isn't moving. You scoop in the lower belly, pull up the pelvic floor, let the back toes lift off of the mat. find something ahead of you that isn't moving to launch yourself into this warrior 3 pose. We're going to be here for just a second. Come down nice and gentle. It's okay if you wobble. It's just yoga. Don't take it too serious. Come back into your high lunge and then slowly start to pull your left toes forward, coming back into your chair pose. We're going to be here for just a couple of seconds and then lengthen and shake it out. Shake out your legs. That's a lot of strength work. Shake out your feet before we reset for the next side. Take a few breaths. Make sure you shake out those legs because we're going to do it again, friends. Take a big inhale up here and then start to sit into your chair pose. Remember that there are levels, so maybe try a different level this time than you tried last time. Go ahead and sit into your chair, feeling the strength through your legs, all corners of your feet rooted through your mat, feeling nice and strong. Nice long breaths. Try not to start to stagger your breaths here. Keep them elongated and beautiful. Bringing your hands to your hips, slowly start to slide your right foot back. Nice and slow. This side is so much smoother than my other side. Like you're moving through honey, nice and slow into our high lunge. Beautiful. This is a balancing pose, so make sure that your front foot is really anchoring you to your mat so that you feel nice and strong as we head into our balancing pose. One more breath here before we start to lean forward to feel that weight in our front foot. We're going to do the same thing, engage our core. Start to scoot up just a little bit so that your stance isn't so wide. So you're going to scoop in the lower belly, pull up the pelvic floor, let that launch you forward, hinging at the hip, keeping a micro bend in your front knee into this beautiful warrior 3 pose, finding your dristi, a spot that isn't moving to focus on, and we'll be here for 3, 2, 1. Come on down and slowly slide your right foot up to your left, nice and slow, keeping that bend in your front knee, pressing back down into your chair pose. We're just here for a few, for 3, 2, and 1. Take a deep breath here. Let it go. One more deep breath. Let it go. And release. Beautiful. Go ahead and shake out your legs. If you like this part of the flow, feel free to pause your video and go through it a couple more times, going from your chair pose to your lunge to your warrior 3 and slowly back into a chair if you'd like a nice challenge. For the sake of brevity and keeping this quick, we are going to proceed with the rest of our flow. Go ahead and meet me at the top of your mat. Take a deep breath up. And forward fold, hands to blocks or the floor, yogi's choice, and step back into your downward facing dog. From here, I'm going to lift my left leg up off of the ground into a 3-leg dog and give my hip a few rotations here. And then we're going to swing forward into our pigeon pose. I'm using my blocks for support, but it's totally up to you. If you need a little bit more of a stretch, you can lose the blocks and press your hands into the mat. While you're in pigeon pose, just think of your leg should be parallel with you, but sometimes mine is more like a 7. So either looking like a 7 or an L in front of you, whichever feels best. You can play with both. If you are feeling really warm, you can take a strap and hook it to your back leg and pull up into a king pigeon. I'm not today. Or if you need a little bit more support, you can also put a blanket in between your legs. I'm going to take support of my blocks, press forward, kind of coming into a bit of a tabletop position, pressing back up into our downward facing dog. Our right leg comes up this time. Give it a few rotations and then pigeon pose on the opposite side. Beautiful. You can see a little bit better on this side. And like I said, if you need support in the middle, you can put a bolster in between the two legs to act as some additional support, bringing that ground closer. You can also lose the blocks like I did here for a little bit of an extra stretch. Make this pose your own. It's intense, so stick with your breath. Feel that stretch through your hip, through your quad, and your glute. Keeping with that breath as it intensifies. And notice if you're holding any tension. I noticed I was tensing my glute to avoid the full sensation, so I did let go of my glute so that I could feel that full stretch through my hip. We're going to bring our knees as wide as our mat here and make room for our belly in the center of our legs. Our big toes come to touch and we slowly start to lean forward into a beautiful child's pose. Relaxing, catching our breath, taking a moment to reflect on our practice today and all that your body did for you. If you'd like to stay in meditation, pause this video here. I'm going to take one hand and wrap it to the opposite side of my rib cage and the opposite hand coming over to the opposite side, giving myself a nice gentle squeeze, thanking myself for all that I did today, for showing up to your yoga practice, for trusting your body, and for trusting me to lead you in your practice today. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you, and I will see you all very, very soon.
Don't forget, I'm not just your friendly YouTube yoga instructor. I'm a yoga instructor in real life, so if you have any questions about modifications or options, please send me a direct message on Instagram. It's the easiest way to get a hold of me, and I will see you all really soon.